Everyone, this is Catherine. I'm the founder of MarketX, and we are a pre-IPO investment platform helping global investors looking at the best companies around the world. Today, we have the honor to invite Mike, who is a long-term friend of mine and also the founder of Triller. And Mike has over 16 years of product and technology experience working in mobile and social games and online media. He has been the co-founder of Fusion 8, which was acquired by RockU. He was also previously the VP of product at Gree and executive producer of Funzio when it was acquired by Gree for $200 million. Before mobile, Mike was employee number 5 at Yumi, an online video advertising technology company. He is also a restaurateur working with notable chefs like Dominic Crenn of Atelier Crenn. So thank you, Mike, for joining us. Would you mind give us a little intro from yourself?
Sure. I really need to update that. That sounded kind of embarrassing, but no. Good evening or good morning, everyone. My name is Mike. I've been in technology for the last 16 years, really focused around consumer and online. As Catherine mentioned, I've done 2 different startups before that both exited. The first one, Yumi, which was, we went from 5 people, the first technology to really put video advertising online, which in 2005 was a really brand new thing. We had to convince a lot of people that people were going to watch video online, which in 2020 sounds very obvious. But back then, people would ask me like, "Oh, why would people want to watch, video on such a small device when they have a giant TV?" So we took that from 5 people to IPO. So we raised from seed stage all the way to IPO and learned a lot about just for fundraising and growth from that. And then Triller has been a really interesting journey. I can talk a little bit about the beginning of Triller, how we arrived here. I'm pretty sure Catherine asked that next. But, if you're interested in talking about food, I love food. I am a restaurateur. Been working with some really great chefs. And I know some of you guys have, and some of you guys have been to my restaurants. So if you want to talk food anytime, hit me up. I'm always open to it.
Great. So we'll start the fireside chat with a bunch of fire questions from me. Mike, are you ready?
Sure, of course.
Right. Great. So first question, can you tell us about the beginning of Triller? How did you guys come up with this idea?
Yeah, so Triller has its roots around music. And, my background is in product development. So I've been a PM, as you say, for my entire career. So building on a product, you sort of first want to figure out the identity of what your product is. And sometimes that identity is discovered for you by the users, but sometimes you lead with it. In our case, we wanted to lead with it by really pushing our identity around music and music discovery and music editing. So in the early days of Triller, we were mostly an editing app where people would download our product, edit videos to music. We built some really great AI technology that looked at the biometric movements of your video and synchronized that to the beats of your song. And then that was it. People would then download those videos that they created using Triller and then post it in other places like Twitter or Instagram. Eventually, we opened our own platform and allowed users to work with each other, post and follow each other. And from that, this was around 2017, we were able to gain a pretty quick loyal following of about 2 million monthly active unique users, which we're really proud of, right? Because we had spent no marketing dollars. It was all word of mouth, organic promotion. And fast forward, now we're in 2020 in July, we have now grown to over 250 million users worldwide. This past weekend, we hit the #1 app worldwide. We were #1 across 80 different countries, including the United States, Brazil, Italy, Germany, France, Russia. 80 countries. I can just literally name off countries for the rest of this entire talk. But I'll spare you the boringness. But the thing that we kept from our humble beginnings to now is that even at #1 across 80 countries, we've never spent money on marketing, which in 2020 is almost like impossible to believe, because no app or no technology has made it this big without marketing. It's always been word of mouth. It's always been about our product. It's always been about our identity. So, now we have caught the attention of a lot of people. My job is to make sure that we focus forward, make sure that there's always money in the bank, and continue to build a great product for our users.
Great. For the audience, please save your questions. I can see some of you are asking questions. We'll get to your questions soon. So when you first talk about your users, what would you say is the #1 feature aspect of Triller, and what make people love this app?
I think what people love about it still goes back to our beginnings, which is the content creation piece, right? So something that we really strive for is to ensure that we can make content creation as quickly and easily as possible. So when you first see a Triller video, your immediate reaction is like, oh, that looks really fun. How can I make one myself? And when we do our analysis of our cohorts, we find that people who make content have a 10x stickier rate in terms of retention, in terms of engagement. So content creation has always been one of our core focus around our camera technology, which we've built over 25 issued patents now around that. And that remains to be our core of our product.
Gotcha. And this is an interesting question. What do you think about the competitors, and what's Triller's positioning against them?
Well, all right, we're jumping right into it. So,
Yes.
It's a very crowded space in a way of like, obviously the elephant in the room is TikTok, right? And ByteDance, who owns TikTok, is valued north of 150 billion. I don't even know the number anymore.
Right.
Like, it's some ridiculous, huge number, but it's around $150 billion, and that's the rumor at least. And when you have a company which is that valued, every single company or startup or anything that is remotely close to it will gear toward that. Right? They're going to try to replicate that. So in that way, we have seen a lot of companies come and go, including from bigger companies like Facebook, who created Lasso about 3 years ago, that launched on Facebook. And with Facebook, all its marketing, all its users, they actually shut it down just 2 months ago. They couldn't find success with it. So that's another company that's come and gone. But obviously there's TikTok, which we actually don't see as a competitor. We see, but I think a lot of the industry sees us as that. But then there's also Instagram Reels, which is really just Instagram that just came out today. I made a couple of Reels videos myself. But there's always going to be, when you're looking at the top and there's a value that's $150 billion, you're always going to have people come in and try to either replicate or emulate that market share from you. So we've been around for some times. We have a very strong identity. Our numbers speak for themselves in terms of just how many users have joined us organically. And then we think that we'll always be around in terms of how we position ourselves in the marketplace.
Thank you, Mike. So maybe we can start with many of us here are founders, also investors as well. Can you walk us through your background, and when it comes to building this company from ground up, what are some of the, maybe tales from the challenges, initial days when they say, why you would build a competitor to ByteDance, TikTok when they're already so big? Can you share with us some of these juicy stories?
Yeah, there's so many to name. Obviously, like, word of advice to any young entrepreneurs would be like, go where the water is blue, not where the water is red. And I decided to go where it's not just red, it's like bloody with sharks and tons of pirates already out there.
Right.
But no, we went there because we really believe we could build a differentiating product, right? And we took a different approach of really working with the music industry first. So when we set out the product, what most people do is they wait till the last moment to work with the music industry, usually when they're about to get sued. But for us, we've been really focused since the beginning, and we have, basically secured partnership with all 3 of the major labels. And that in itself have many, 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 many stories around that, because I'm not from the music industry. The music industry is very complex, lots of rules, lots of regulations. It's 150 years old. There are literally languages and contracts that are 100 years old, right? Not even exaggerating. So I think there are many, many stories around that growth. But I think, as you alluded in the beginning, don't do what I did. Find the blue water. Find the blue water and find your lane and dominate that lane, because there's it's definitely not easy.
I see. So you're actually advising founders to do the opposite of what you did.
Yes.
I see. So when it comes to building a company at this size, what do you think are the areas in terms of strategy you felt like you guys made the right move and therefore you brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, and I don't want this to sound cliche because I know it's used a lot, but I think, really focusing on your identity, right? And for Triller, in our early days, our identity was around hip hop. Our identity was around like urban. Our identity is around, streetwear. So we had a lot of people, especially foreign investors, who would ask us like, hey, like, why are there so many Black people on your platform? Right. And, why don't you diversify? And, my response was, at the time, like, this is who we are, right? This is where we believe in, I'm kind of a sneakerhead myself. I grew up listening to like, hip hop myself. So, a lot of that comes from my own DNA. But it's something that I never waver, right? Like, I always looked at our data. I always looked at the way that, this genre has always helped us, been the forefront of anything that's cool. And,
Right.
if you look at historically, like even something like Beats, which started in the urban space, they've seen a lot of great success. And now, Triller was another story of that. Like we stuck true to our roots. We didn't waver, even though there were a lot of pressure, right, to change that core of who we are, but we stuck strong. We've been authentic. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that if I can pass on to other founders, like, is really strong, is that, stick to your identity. Don't let market conditions or other people tell you to change, because, like, for example, if you ask, a product, most consumers, how do you improve a car? They'll just tell you, like, oh, I want a faster car, right? Like, that's not really what you want to hear. So in that, we've always stuck to our core. We've always been strong in our DNA. And I think now we see the benefit of that.
That's great. And for many people, I think you are the trailblazer in getting the Hollywood plus technology Silicon Valley. Can you tell us about how you were able to get so many celebrities to, endorse you guys, and Chance the Rapper, Post Malone, all these people? Do you mind sharing your secret sauce here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think people think I'm like some really cool guy that knows all these people.
Oh, you
I
are?
mean, no, I'm just a big nerd. Just like everyone, I have giant glasses, I drink water, and I, I'm a geek at heart, right? But what I can impart is like, focusing on your product, right? Focusing on building something that brings value and brings entertainment to your client is really important. And you'll find that celebrities and the Hollywood and influencers, they'll naturally come to an area where they know that's where their audience is, right? So, I can literally trace the steps of how Cardi B found Triller from the first time, which, started out with a DJ producer in Atlanta, Georgia, by the name of DJ Suede, who I met and, had, dinner with and drinks with. Really good guy who introduced Triller to one of his producers, who introduced it to Chance the Rapper. And the way of introduction is that they all made videos. It was just a fun product, right? They're sitting around in the studio, they're bored, they're waiting for something to mix, and they're making Triller videos, right? And then Chance the Rapper made a Triller video that was to a Cardi B song, and then he sent it to Cardi B, and then Cardi B loved the video and then posted about it.
Wow.
So I can literally trace it all the way back to my conversation with up-and-coming producer DJ Suede in Atlanta, Georgia, all the way to it being a Triller video being posted by Cardi B. So that's one of many stories, but I think what I'm trying to get to is at every intersection of that story, the connecting dot is our product, right? It was fun. People had fun making it. People saw the video and said, oh, I want to make a video that's like that. So I think for founders and entrepreneurs, you got to focus on that connector. Don't get lost in the who's-ahs. And for me personally, like I'm so data-driven that when I see big names or big artists come onto the platform, my first reaction or the questions I ask my team is, well, how did that change our metrics, right? Like so-and-so joined. Well, did that improve retention? Did that improve installs? Did that improve da-da-da-da-da? So we have to look at it more product focus and less glamorous focus, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's really impressive that you got some really stellar investors as well. Apparently, all three major music companies, Sony, Universal, Warner, are all investing in Triller. Also, the previous investor in Musically, Jason Ma, also investing in you guys. This is really great. And I think many of the companies that we're looking at, relatively growth, late stage, there must be like inflection point. When did you know this was like going to be the next big, this is America Got Talent, this is MTV?
I think the press has been very, very kind to us. It hasn't really hit me yet, and I don't think it will, because I tell the same thing to my team and I tell it to my peers as well, which is like, my focus is to look at what we can do tomorrow, right? It's almost like imagine building a house, right? As you're building a house, you're focused on layering the bricks in front of you, right? You put down the concrete, layer a brick, you put down the concrete, layer a brick, and that's where you focus. And you focus on the next 10 bricks that you need to layer, or the next 100 or next 1,000, and you wake up and you focus on that, right? And yeah, sure, like, if you look down, you might have built a 600-foot skyscraper, but you're not done. So your focus and my focus is to look forward and say, what is the next 10 bricks I need to layer? And just focus on that. Don't let everything else like distract you, because again, they're just distractions.
Right. And now let's talk about the future of Triller. You guys have climbed to #1 in over 50 countries. What is right now your expansion internationally, and where do you see like the biggest growth?
Yeah, no, we hit #1 in 80 countries, not just 50, but
right.
We see ourselves as a global app, and we're scrambling to hire. Literally can't hire fast enough, right? And the thing with content is highly localized, meaning that what people in India will like and value as really compelling content will be different than what people in Korea value as great content versus what people in America will value as great content. So our fastest growing team is content moderation to make sure that we can deliver the best AI-driven content to each of these regions. And as we look to expand more, I think for us, our #1 strategy has always been about servicing the artists, servicing the creators first. So all of our tools, all of our partnerships revolve around that, and our product is built around that.
Right. And I think right now, let's just talk about the current round. You guys are raising a big round. Do you mind telling us more about what you're looking at?
Yeah, this is the part where I guess it's usually under NDA. We love to share more about the round that we are raising and details of that, but I'll have to do it privately because I think this is
yeah, sure, no problem.
Like live on Facebook and like.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely public, PR that we've seen out there. If any of you are interested, you can check out TechCrunch. Triller is raising a big round, over 1 billion valuation. So I think if any of you interested, definitely, message me, message Mike. We can, love to discuss. So I think, maybe we can open it up for the questions from the audience. Please raise your hand and I will make you the speaker. So feel free to ask Mike any questions here. I think I've unmuted everyone, so feel free to speak as long as you can unmute yourself. All right, I will ask another question since I think everyone's still preparing theirs.
Man, did I put everyone to sleep? I'm sorry. I know it's boring, but man, that's it's sad. I mean, maybe some of you guys are just waking up in Asia. It's okay. I'm not offended.
Yeah,
hey, Mike.
Little sad. I'm kidding.
Mike,
kidding.
it's
What's
Mike.
up, guys?
Hey, quick question on what you guys are doing in terms of pivoting the business. Like you said, it started off from a product that just made fun videos to now obviously having a lot of content. And we saw that you guys did the Triller Fest not too long ago, and now with the upcoming Tyson fight,
Mhm.
it seems like the company is now pivoting more towards a media platform. Is
Mhm.
that kind of where you're driving the business to go towards as you continue to grow the business and the concept of Triller? Can you talk a little bit about that? How the company is
Sure.
slowly starting to morph?
Yeah, no, the that's a great question, Mike. And yes, your assumptions are correct. Like what we ultimately see for any company like ours is that you begin as a utility, right? Like you're providing a service to someone. Every great platform out there has done this. Facebook was first to create a connector, but offered a service of exclusivity, right? Snapchat started out as disappearing videos, right? That you allowed you to send private messages and connect people. There was always a utility that started the product. And for us, our utility was around the editing and video and music, etc. But now as we've grown into more of a platform, the entertainment value, the media aspect of it has become more important, right? For example, as you have read, the Mike Tyson fight, Triller owns 100% of that, right? Like we own the pay-per-view rights, we own the merchandise, we own the streaming rights. Every component of that is something that was going to be produced by Triller. And for a young company like ours, it seems a little odd, but it actually fits very well with our overall strategy, which is we are, going toward more of content creation, but more into, live events, cultural events that are what you guys, what the industry knows as professionally generated content. And that, as a media company, has very traditional roots around advertising, around monetization, and around user growth. So for Triller, as we expand and as we look to doing more, will be a much more focus around being a bigger platform than just like a utility application.
I think Val has raised his hand.
Yeah,
Val,
hi.
go ahead.
Hey, Mike.
Hello.
Hey, thank you very much for coming out, and just also thank Catherine for setting this up. This is really fascinating. Far from falling asleep, I'm riveted. I just didn't want to be the first person to ask questions. Actually, I have a bunch of questions. I have a quick one. You mentioned that you have 250 million MAUs worldwide in 80 countries. What's your MAU in the US right now?
So let me be clear. I didn't say 250 million MAUs. I said we have 250 million users.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we haven't disclosed our MAU numbers yet, and we're not going. We don't plan to unless we do a sort of a bigger PR piece. So I can't really comment on that because it's a little
What
bit
about US user?
Yeah, so I mean, we've always been predominantly a US application.
I see.
We actually didn't expand internationally until this year. For the first 3 years of Triller, we've been mostly a US company. And again, I can't really share details of our specific numbers, but I can tell you that we're still a predominantly US user base.
Got it. And another quick question. Do you pay the content creators?
So right now we don't pay the content creators. We haven't before, but we are rolling out monetization components for creators that allow them to take part in the Triller ecosystem in the future.
Okay, very good, very good. If I may add one more, if my last question is a little bit long, if you could elaborate. The last question I have is, if you have $1 billion in marketing budget right now, how would you spend it? Where are you gonna spend it? In what geography you're gonna focus on, and what kind of user growth do you expect to see with $1 billion in marketing budget? And that's all I have.
Wow, save the best for last. That's a pretty detailed question. So obviously, we actually have a detailed strategy around that. So I'm not going to go into too much of the details, but I think, part of the question I think will be useful in terms of my answer is to really think about your user growth, not just from buying banner ads, right? Like, because I think that's a very old model of just trying to drive the highest click-through rate, trying to drive the highest conversion. And I think paying influencers, right? Which is a model that I think is about a little outdated, mostly because in the influencer model, the kids have gotten smarter, right? They know when one of their favorite influencers is being paid to make this content. They're not doing it authentically. So I think there needs to be improvements around that. Number two, around just buying banner ads, while targeting and data and tracking everything down to how many people open and how long they engage has greatly improved with companies like AppsFlyer. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all of marketing, right? So if you do have $1 billion to spend, I think you have to try to innovate in the way that you spend your money and not just relying on these 2 or 3, standard, safe, basic ways of marketing, because kids are getting smarter, so they know when they're being sold things to, and certain audiences, especially the younger generation, they can't be bought, right? And then while data is great for direct response, I think people forget what the goal of the marketing plan is and just get lost in the data and just get data hungry. So I think, without going to listing out our exact plans, I think using those philosophies, Triller has a pretty unique plan. And like I said, the numbers speak for themselves, right? Like, I don't think you'll find another company in the world that has hit #1 in 80 countries without spending any money on marketing. So I think we have a pretty competitive edge around that.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. Go ahead.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I must admit I didn't know about Triller up to this point, Mike.
All right.
However,
I converted as long as you install. I think the call was worth it.
But just could you just can you tell us, what does your basic user, how does she or he uses the Triller? Also, could this be a platform where a beginning musician perhaps can start up, so to speak? Is this the right platform? And what does your basic...
Yeah. I think, Sam, your general question is how does Triller works, and would we be able to help emerging artists to create their music on Triller? Is that the question?
Fair, yes.
Thank you.
So Triller is a short form video platform where people can come and create content, but also view great short form content that are between 15 to 30 seconds on average. Triller's goal is to help emerging artists and emerging influencers to be discovered, but most important, to have fun on the platform, right? Like, similar to us, there are platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and then Triller has its own voice around music.
Thanks, Mike.
So that's like a 30-second, usual. You can literally record myself and just play that, but that's our usual response.
So we have a question from Anthony. Hey, Anthony, would you like to ask a question?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. My question is around the whole landscape around AI algorithms and the evolution of them and competitive advantage going forward. So how does Triller's AI algorithm from matching differentiate from, say, like TikTok's, since a lot of people think that TikTok's AI algorithm was what enabled it to sort of dominate the US market, even though most of its people actually are based in China and may not have as much of a cultural understanding of the US. Mm-hmm. And you see, these AI algorithms potentially becoming open source in the future, and how would that sort of change the competitive landscape?
Yeah, no, I think the assumption is true, actually. Like the AI recommendation system, where content recommendation is, multi-billion-dollar, if not trillion-dollar industry, right? Like Amazon has perfected it in a way of when you buy a product, they know exactly what other product you should buy. When you watch something on Netflix, they automatically know what type of movies or shows that you like. So an AI-driven reco system is one of the most invested, researched genres. In fact, you can, Google, YouTube content algorithm, and there's 100 different published papers written by Google engineers, YouTube engineers, that showcase different methods, right? So it's absolutely true. And, obviously Triller, we have our own secret sauce, if you will. And ByteDance has built an amazing one, right? Like Total, rose to the top because of their recommendation system. And we see people really fall in love with the content they see on Triller and on TikTok. So I think, there's not enough hours in a day. We have to spend like a week of us explaining what the AI does in Triller. But, it's definitely something that we notice and something that we pay heavy attention to. And not just us, but like if any company out there who's not, they're going to lose to the ones who are, because I think, especially around media, we go from a world where there are a scarcity of content, right? Because you remember in the early 70s, 80s, before my time, you had 3 channels. You had ABC, NBC, and CBS. Or you had 2 channels. You had CCTV1 and CCTV2. Right? That is the extent of your content, right? Like, if you want to find other content outside, good luck. But now in 2020, there's an abundance of content, right? You have Netflix, you have YY, you have Huya, you have, YouTube. There's literally no shortage of content, and there won't be for a long time. So the recommendation system becomes highly important, because when you have that much abundance, you really, 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 really have to focus on personalizing, understanding your audience. And every company will have their own secret sauce. And I think, we've done a good job, as in case of our numbers. And I think we'll always try to improve that.
Great.
And I guess to follow up on that, do you see that the AI algorithm piece at some point in the future might sort of become, in a way like commoditized, and, maybe the network or data advantage that was built on top of it becoming more of the moat? Or would there be potentially open sourcing of the AI algorithms, or how do you see that sort of playing out in the future?
Sure. It's a great question. And I think the short answer is, if it's just pure AI, then yes, absolutely, it will get commoditized. The math will get perfected. It's just like trading algorithms, right? Like how much innovation has come into stock trading algorithms in the last 10 years. Now you might say tons, especially around short trading, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at the core math, it's basically the same, right? And I was about to make a joke, but I'm not going to. What AI algorithms, when it comes to content recommendation, it will, be a parabolic curve at some point versus an exponential curve. And once it hits the parabolic curve, which I think you're all going to see with any technology, the innovation will be happening in a less obvious way. And that's actually what's happening now, right? So yes, the math can only get so good, but it comes to the secret sauce that ByteDance has deployed, that YouTube has deployed, that Triller has deployed, that separates that. And it's not math, actually. It's actually not math at all that determines it.
Great. So I think we have also a couple questions from offline, but first one, Sachin, I think.
I've just got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
I have to jump on another call, but.
Sounds good. Sachin, do you want to ask the last question?
Yeah, sure. I was just interested about how you built the culture of Triller and how you found maintaining that during COVID.
Yes, so culture of Triller and how to maintain that during COVID. So, one thing that we've always said at Triller is, and you've heard me say this, identity. The identity of Triller we've established in the very beginning. And it's almost like a mantra that we says that we want the next Justin Bieber or Chris Brown to be discovered on Triller. And that's been our mantra since day one. And ask anyone that's talked to me, like, that's what I say time and time again for the last 4 years. So having a guiding light of what we are and who we are and why we exist is really important. And from a culture at the company, I think the best way to describe our culture is the people behind it, right? Like, we have an individual, her name's Kendra, who we hired actually to help us with merchandising. And she rose quickly through the ranks, really wowed us with her presentation skills, and now runs our content operations team. And, we believe that she is on her way to becoming a vice president in a year or so. And, she'll be a vice president of a multi-billion-dollar company. So from being hired to help merchandise to being a VP for content operations, that is the culture of Triller, right? Like, we want people to become successful here, not just as artists, right? We don't just want to find the Justin Bieber of art. We want to find the Justin Bieber of the people, right? The people that come in through our doors that can leave as, a vice president of a multi-billion-dollar company. That's in the same spirit and identity of what Triller believes in. And we want to make sure that's carried through in all of it. And of course, COVID sucks. LA is probably one of the worst hit places anywhere in the world. But we've been able to maintain that culture because we all really believe in what we do, and we see the results, right? And that's been fun. It's what gets me up every morning, and it's what motivates our team.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I can attest that from knowing you 5 years ago, seeing you hustle, from day one. You've been always the most modest and hardworking person. I love to see you guys succeed at this point to $1.25 billion company. That's just really amazing. So thank you again for joining us today. If anyone else have other questions, please message me. You can find my email here, Catherine@themarketx.com. Please send any questions to me and we can start a discussion. Again, thanks, Mike, for joining us today. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.